Okay, we are live and recording. So, welcome everyone to all our listeners chiming in. This is our very own podcast here at Gen Physio called Behind the Wheel. And it's very much about highlighting our people here at Gen Physio and getting to know our people in a professional and personal sense. So, today, introduce myself, Jordan, the founder of Gen Physio. We've got Lauren Gilmeister. I hope I'm saying that right. I should be by now. No, we've been working together for over 3 years, and Lauren's been brave enough to agree to jump on the podcast today and answer some weird and wonderful but insightful questions that we've got put together. So I'm really excited to jump into it today. Lauren, over to you. Give us a little bit of a highlight about yourself. Maybe how you got into speech and where you're from originally, and just give us a bit of a couple minutes of background of yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. I'm excited to be the first guest on the podcast. As you said, I've been with Gen Physio about 3.5 years. Had a lot of work and experience in the hospital setting. And whilst I loved the setting, I was a little bit frustrated by it. The fast turnover, you do your assessment and then think, oh, this client would be perfect for this kind of therapy, and then they'd be discharged and you'd never see them again. So I really knew I wanted a setting to work in that was functional and you could really see the needs of the client, particularly when it comes to communication as well. You want to see the client or the patient when they are most comfortable. That's when you get their best communication skills. So it was it was a no-brainer for me to come out into a setting where I could see that. And I guess I really didn't want to niche myself either. I learnt so many skills in language and speech and voice and swallowing and fluency and AAC that I knew that if I niched myself, say, into swallowing, which is definitely my passion in the space, I didn't want to necessarily, and I'll say in air quotes, lose the skills. But it's definitely hard to keep up with everything if you don't practice it. So that's what brought me to Gen Physio 3.5 years ago. But what brought me to the profession, I definitely knew I wanted to work in health or the medical setting in some capacity. I very quickly ruled out medicine. When I was younger, my sister cracked her head on the back of a trampoline. My dad thought he'd be funny. Yep, the ones
that... All had a moment like that
that's
growing
it.
up, I think. Maybe not the fracture, but...
Especially the old school ones. There were no nets, no safety. Yes. And my dad thought he would be funny, came home and surprised us and kind of yelled out. And so she fell back and cracked her head open. And so, the sight of blood and I didn't go very well, so I ruled out medicine. And around a similar time, I was visiting one of my grandmothers who was in a GEM ward, a geriatric ward at one of the hospitals here in Brisbane. And I was really intrigued because I walked in when she was being assessed by this lady, and she was trialing her with a bunch of different textures and like holding her neck. And I thought this was a doctor, but she wasn't the doctor. And I probed and asked a lot of questions, and turns out she was a speech pathologist. And so that was probably the first instance I'd seen a speech pathologist working outside the space, say with kids. I think primarily when you think a speech pathologist, people think, stutters or lisps and working with kids. I really loved seeing that, and it quickly became my first preference for QTAC. And I've never looked back. I absolutely love being a speech pathologist, and the people I work with. I think at the moment on my caseload, my youngest client is 2 and my eldest is in her 90s. So I love the variety.
Lauren, you've given me a lot of gems to go with right now, and I'm going to remember all of that. And look, as a fellow clinician, as a physio, not a speechy, but a fellow clinician in a sense that I definitely resonate with what you're talking about. Going back from the very start, you were talking about the hospital setting and getting exposure in that space with your clinical placements, and certainly that lack of continuing care and the unknown of I've set my client up with some good skills and sort of a treatment plan and a path forward, but they're not the opportunity to follow up and actually continue that care, develop that relationship and actually see the rewarding results. I love that, because that was the same experience for me as well. And sort of why, as a physio coming into the space 13 years ago, is what what I loved about community and what I wanted from it. You also mentioned around the breadth of skills and treatment methods and what you're up against in the community offers a huge variety. I definitely can resonate with that as well, and that's, I guess, what we love about community work here and what we're all about here at Gen Physio. 100% mobile as you get that exposure. So that's great, that I can definitely understand, and I'm sure a lot of other clinicians who've been in community for years now or even starting out that have some similar sort of exposures and desires to come into our world of in and out of homes. And even your point on the quality of care or the working with a client in the home setting, and just to touch on that a little bit more, can you why do you think treating clients in the home setting offers perhaps a superior value than, say, in a clinic or hospital setting when it comes to a speech pathologist?
Yeah, I think as I said, it's you see a very different client in a sterile hospital or clinic setting. People are coming in particularly to an unfamiliar environment, whether it's, say, children, particularly when they're in an environment they don't know. Some of them don't speak at all, and then it's really hard to do an assessment when the little one's not speaking. And vice versa, the same goes for adults. So that comfortability and functionality of the home, you can really see what it is that they need. And often they might have their family members with them at home. And so you can start to see, like, okay, maybe it would be really meaningful, say, a client's post-stroke and they have severe speech and language difficulties. You can really prompt and probe, okay, what kind of conversations would you actually be having here at home? And it's easier to scaffold because you can see the setting of the home, what it is that they do, the routines that they have. And on the flip side of that, when you're doing swallowing assessments, you can look at the cups they have, the equipment they use, the chairs they'll be sitting in. And then obviously being a speechy, you can then link that quite closely with the OT as well. So you can see the equipment that they have. So it has its challenges in the swallowing space working in the community, but in terms of an overall picture, I think it's second to none treating in the home.
Fantastic. Yeah, good. It's 100% agree with you on all that you've said. It's certainly easier to work with a client in the comfortability and safety of their own setting, no matter the age and sort of demographic of the client you're working with. And I like what you said around incorporating, your other family members or having the time for them to get exposure on what you're doing and how things are working and helping them understand, because we know very well that an holistic approach to getting the best results is usually the best way, and in bringing in a family member, a carer, or someone else to assist you with the home exercise program or the ongoing work that they need to do, or the changes that they need to make for safety or anything else. It's better to have we're only there for 30 to 50 minutes, give or take, depending on the consultation length, and what happens outside of that. If that's in a positive light for what we're trying to achieve with a client, we're going to get far better results, even if it's only a small amount of extra work that someone else assists us along the journey with the client. Then it's a huge win. So it sounds like, again, you and I know hands down mobile and community is where it's at, because of these great aspects of being able to get good results with our clients. So fantastic. Now, you've mentioned a couple times speech pathologists. We've even got speech and language in there. For all us non-speechies, tell us, I hear speech therapy, it's not the way to go, it's not the word. What would you like to be called? I mean, speaking for all speechies out there, maybe where should we go as a non-speechy? Fellow clinician or a non-clinician at all, how do we address your profession? Because it's the trickiest one to get. We seem to get around our other disciplines, but what do you prefer?
It's a good question. I think the breadth of the scope of a speech pathologist has changed a lot in the last, say, 30 to 40 years. As I said earlier, often people think speech therapist, work with children, we do speech sounds and we fix lisps. 90% of people will say, oh, the speech therapist is here, and by no means is it incorrect. I think officially under a title, we're a speech language pathologist, but
Yes.
if you included all of our areas of practice, it would be speech, language, fluency, voice, AAC, swallowing therapist. So no one's going to call us that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We could start here, Lauren. We could start it. Well, I
We,
could make that happen for
yeah.
you and the team. Well, maybe not, right? Because then that would be a lot to write on reports, emails. We'd
Yeah.
all get confused. Okay, that actually kind of because I've had that dilemma since we launched our speech pathology team and service back in 2019. I remember being a physio, therapy is thrown around a little bit more, and even from our other disciplines, they would probably agree. So that was my nature, I guess, with speech therapy. But I soon learned very quick from a couple of senior speechies we had on board back then that wasn't reflective of the whole bigger picture. So, okay, I like that. So you reckon, what about speechies? That seems to be flying okay. Can we land on that?
I've definitely called myself a speechy, and I think we, as a team, call ourselves the speechy team. So I think you're safe to call us that.
All right, yeah. All right, we'll move with that unless we hear otherwise. So, fantastic. All right, so we're clearing some of that up for the audience. I know will be listening and getting a really good insight, not only to you, Lauren, but to our speechy discipline. So, I guess I want to go to life on the road a little bit more and got a few questions coming up, but particularly, what do you love most about, I guess, working in the community? And you've mentioned some great aspects about um, the 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 holistic care and sort of the results that you can get within the home and the safety that the client feels, and which is, assuming a great aspect of what we can do and offer here. But is there anything else in the community that you like?
Definitely the variety. I
Okay, yeah, good.
days where I am on the road, I can be at a kindergarten, and then the next I'm at a school, and then the next I might see a client at a library, then it's at home. It's a different setting. I think for myself, I struggle to be locked in the same four set of walls. So
You're
being
right.
outside,
Yeah, yeah.
having lunch in a nice space, I like that change throughout the day and the variability of the settings for sure.
I being out on the road, and I'm not sure if all our team members know this, but certainly back in the early days, I was out on the road seeing anywhere between six to nine clients a day, and I mean back then it was pre NDIS, or so it was a lot more 30-minute consultations. So for those who are out there, they definitely weren't our NDIS clientele in the longer consults, but yeah, definitely being out on the road, getting the variety, absolutely loved it. And when coming into, as the business grew and more into the management aspects of Gen Physio and stepping into more of taking off the physio hat and putting the business leader, CEO hat, even though I go with founder, it did take an adjustment because the four walls aspect is something that I never wanted to really go towards. Certainly as a clinician anyway, it would be very hard to go back to the four walls and a clinic. God, if you didn't have a window in you, I feel sorry for some clinicians out there that are working in clinics, some friends and peers that I know, and they're business leaders and they don't have windows for their team. So I've got a lovely window at the back here, I guess, looking at Domain and Harvey Norman and a car park. So, I take the wins where I can, but, I'm definitely fully support team aligned. But at the same token, I'd love to get out there as well. And I know we connected again at a recent networking event, and that absolutely love that aspect. So great variety of clients. That's something you definitely get here, and something we certainly tout. Even when it comes to recruitment, you'll be surprised, and everyone has their own desires, but we get some clinicians and speechies that are wanting to come in and say, I only want to work with this age group and this particular. And look, admirable as that is, that's not what we're about here at Gen Physio. We can offer that over time, but it's not something, we want to develop our clinician skills across a range, and then over time we can build them to a something that they're wanting to lean in a bit further, and we're going to advocate for that, and that's sort of that senior pathway we're looking at moving into. But it's great. A lot of when we have that open upfront discussion that we very much have the variety, and you either absolutely love that or you perhaps don't, and then That's okay. So I guess moving on to what have you found that's most challenging or unexpected in your role as a community speech pathologist?
I'd say it's probably a niche one. Treating dysphagia or swallowing difficulties in the community. As I kind of touched on before, I didn't think about the fact when you're in a hospital and you do your assessment with a client or patient in that setting and you change their diet. You might downgrade them to a minced and moist diet or a pureed diet or thickened fluids. You know, you go into a system, you change it, and then the food comes out on a plate, all nice and made to that texture. And then when you come in the community, clients obviously have access to Uber Eats and Coles and Woolworths and takeout. And so if anything, it's really reiterated the need for good client education. And so, obviously recommending the right levels and then educating them on why this change has happened. And, our goal as a speech pathologist in that space is to reduce the risks of choking, aspiration, and then aspiration pneumonia. So it's been a very interesting space, and I'm still definitely learning new ways and tips and tricks to keep clients engaged and on that specific recommendation. But it's easy to grab food out of the fridge from, any kind of level of food, or, you order Uber Eats. And so when you check into the client and you say, okay, what kind of foods have you been eating? One or two times you'll see something slip in that definitely...
The McDonald's wrappers under the
Exactly.
table when you call them out, yeah. Or the cards in the... yeah, okay. And look, they're the tech challenges that we as clinicians have to navigate through. Not all of it's super positive with, the outlook of AI. But then also, what is that... and how that comes into play, but then also, how does it impact our clients in a challenging way that they're potentially swayed outside of the program that we're trying to get them to adhere to, and managing that. I like what you said around education too. I think I do believe as allied health professionals, as clinicians, education is such a big part of what we do, and that's something that, helping that client to really understand what the why will help us get through that. But I do enjoy the Uber Eats on the occasion, not as much as I used to. The prices have gone through the roof in the last few years. I don't know what's going on in that space, but yeah, okay. All right, next question. What's in your boot? What have you got in your boot that would be your favourite go-to, or something quirky, or is it a particular sort of toy or something that clients enjoy interacting with, or just something for the audience?
My car is absolutely chockers. My boot and back seats, and sometimes my
Typical
passenger seat, yeah, it's full. And that's just come with working with peds for 3.5 years. But I would say two things I use with any age and basically any goals would be a mirror and a voice recorder, primarily for speech sounds. When you're trying to teach a little one to say the right sounds, or say you're working with an adult post-stroke, you're trying to prompt them to move their mouth in the right way to make that sound and articulate it correctly. So it's all well and good for them to watch you making the sound, but some clients have no concepts of what they're doing with their mouth. So if you pop a mirror in front of them, I've seen so much more improvement. And then vice versa, doing any voice or speech therapy as well, having the tool to listen back to yourself on the voice recorder, which I just use on the company iPad, has been amazing. I'll say no one really likes to hear themselves back or look at themselves in a mirror, but
singing in the shower is no one. You don't want anyone to hear you with that.
yeah.
It's a bit confronting, even just I guess in the speech sort of aspect, which is such a important skill, or to communicate. I mean, that is critical. Just if you're having challenges there, that would be quite confronting actually, to hear yourself in a way that perhaps you didn't truly understand, because I guess as you speak and what the brain receives, if there's, can be a misalignment there. And I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert in that space by any means, but I can understand. So a mirror and a recording tool. So they're your sort of key assets you've got on the boot. I've seen photos of, well, when I did days out on the road with speechies, the boot Yeah, space, definitely you guys. If anything, got to take something out and put something in, depending on the caseload for the day. If that's still happening.
I don't recommend getting a flat tire because I had to get
Oof.
everything out one by one to get the spare out, and that was atrocious. That took a really long time.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I can imagine. So, note to selves, I guess. Mate, know where the spare tire is
Yeah.
in the car and when all your stuff is. So hopefully that doesn't happen too often as well, and you got away safe. And okay, interesting. Well, I'm look, to be honest, I'm learning a lot, and I hope our audience here is too. Certainly about yourself, Lauren, but in the speech context. All right, we'll try and I've got a couple points left. Probably the last one I'll go with before we do our quick fire round is clinician story. So actually, okay, yep. So maybe a most memorable client moment that you had, inspiring, it was funny, it was an aha moment, or is there anything that could come to top of mind you want to share?
I mean, I have so many, but one that really has stuck with me around how important the work a speech pathologist can do in the communication space was a block of therapy I did with a really lovely older gentleman who I was working with some post-stroke goals. So he had severe apraxia of speech, so he basically had no verbal or vocal output and aphasia, so severe language difficulties. And what was really meaningful for this client and why I remember him was he had a wife, they'd been married for 40, 50 years, they just did everything together, they were glued at the hip, and she sat in on all the sessions, which was really beautiful. And he was really, really motivated to return to conversation with her. So for weeks and weeks, he worked really, really hard in our sessions, but then kind of in private, when she would go out to the shops, he was doing practice. He had a specific statement in mind he wanted to tell her. And I came to a session, and he was really excited to show me this practice that he'd been doing. And he, who couldn't even say yes or no or his name, had turned around to his wife and said, "I love you," wife's name. And just to see the emotion from both of them, there just was not a dry eye in the house. He had had
Wow.
a huge stroke, and by all means, he was having all different stakeholders. He had physios, OTs. He had lost a lot of skills, and there was a lot of emotion from the family around that because he had lots of grandkids and kids. So yeah, there just was not a dry eye in the house, including myself, when he turned over and was able to say a full a 3 to 4 word sentence. And it just reminded me, and still reminds me to this day, of how powerful and meaningful communication is, and being able to express your needs and wants, and aspirations and feelings. It's paramount to your everyday life. So that was one that I think will stick with me for my whole career.
Yeah, absolutely. That would have been a rewarding moment, Lauren, and to be able to have your client reach his goal, and as something simple as one sentence can be so powerful. What a moment, and yeah, that's a big one. So fantastic. I hope you get more moments like that with your clients and the our speechy team as well, or any of our clinicians. Yeah. I know I can think of a few as a physio sense, but it's more in the mobility space. So that's really, really interesting. Thank you for sharing. That's a great story. I know we're coming towards the end of the time here, and before we go to the quick fire round, there's one thing. And the question here, and you probably know where I'm going with this, but what's something that people don't know about you? Have you got something that on the family sense you want to share, or because not all of us know that, but I don't. What is something we don't know about you, and what were you happy to share as a bit of a fun fact?
Is that a fun fact? I'm not sure. I mean, I guess you're
Well, I
alluding.
think so. Or something
Yeah,
cool.
okay.
What's interesting?
I
Interesting on a personal sense.
Yeah, I guess you're alluding to the fact that I grew up in a rugby league household. So I guess
Yes.
that in itself has provided some pretty amazing experiences and opportunities. We did a lot of travel with my dad growing up, and we've met some amazing people and done some things which I will forever be grateful for. I guess growing up in a very active household as well, I now as an adult really enjoy pushing myself out of my comfort zone, particularly with health and fitness.
Yeah, good.
So I guess outside of work, you'd probably find me like out for a run or at the gym or at the beach or even hiking. But I guess one of the cool opportunities I was able to do alongside my dad was 1,800 kilometre walk from Townsville to Brisbane. So it
Wow.
took 32 days in the blazing summer heat. We didn't plan the time of year very well.
Wow, okay.
So
This is an interest. This is taking a different turn, this
yeah,
question.
yeah,
I have not heard about this. That's
yeah.
incredible.
It was a charity walk that my dad on his own coordinated. It was in, I guess, ode to his dad, my grandfather, who unfortunately passed away from mesothelioma, asbestos related cancer.
Oh,
And so
wow. Sorry to hear.
yeah, that was a huge charity event, and we had support crew and people walking with us every day. And in the end, I think we raised about 200,000 for the cause.
Incredible.
Yeah, so that
Yeah.
was, I guess, one of the really amazing opportunities that I have been able to participate in. I mean, I haven't done anything quite as cool since. I mean, I'm training for the Sunshine
Yeah.
Coast Marathon, but that's about it.
Oh,
So,
okay. Look, I've got look, again, this is amateur level. I'm training for the 10K Gold Coast Marathon. So I've got my time, under 50 minutes. I
nice.
did a 5K early this morning and I just got under 25 minutes so it was just under 5 minute kilometers, which is, for me being a sprinter and more into the weights, this is unusual territory. But hey, Lauren, we're learning something new every day about you. Rugby house. I mean, I guess born and bred in Melbourne. It's AFL's been the background for me, but I do appreciate all sports, and I know how good the Origin game was for us anyway. The Queenslanders. I went from Victoria to Queensland, and my wife's New South Wales. So go figure how that goes. But there you go. Okay, fantastic. All right, well, learning a lot, which is great, and I hope our audience is too. We'll go to our quick fire round. Just a couple minutes. I'm gonna, at the top of your head, try and answer these, and we'll power through it. So, what's your go-to lunch on the road?
I'm pretty boring. I meal prep lunch, but I am an absolute fiend for no-do donuts. So a coffee and sweet treats, primarily in
Nice.
Brisbane. I have embarrassingly wrapped up loyalty points at no-do donuts.
No-dough donuts.
Yeah,
Okay.
no-do.
I'm only imagining the quite epic donuts at this place. That's a treat to yourself.
That's it. No-do donuts. That's my
Nice.
go-to.
No-dough donuts. All right. Fantastic. And coffee order. What's your coffee order?
Super basic, just cappuccino and almond.
Nice. Okay. And best Spotify playlist or podcast. Where do you find yourself listening in between your clients on the day?
I am known as the friend who can't pick a genre. So one day it's 80s, next day it's a rap, then it's rock, is Frank Ocean. So I think if you put my like
Hot hits.
songs, yeah, if you put my like songs on Spotify on shuffle, you'd get whiplash because they're so different. So depending on the day,
Appreciation of all the music,
that's
right?
it. That's it. That's
Okay,
it.
let's take that as a good. So a bit of everything,
Bit of everything.
whatever's going on, at the time. How Lauren feels on the day when it comes to music is how it goes. Okay,
Yeah,
love
yeah.
it. Phrase you most used often in the car.
Ooh, trying to think of one I could probably say on a podcast, Jordan, because I see some pretty bad driving.
Too many, yeah, I guess maybe no profanities. But if you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
one, tell me why it happened, and we'll settle with that. Or
Um,
what would happen to cause that word.
no, I think something I've been asking to no one, obviously, just out loud. I'll often wonder why there are so many cars on the road. And I guess that's just post-COVID. Everyone's moved up to Queensland, and there's just
Yes, they have.
every hour of the day is peak hour now. So probably be asking why there's so many cars on the road or making some kind of comment about like, oh, good indicating, mate, if someone pulls into my lane.
All right. Yeah, he must have been a BMW driver then, no indication. So there you go. Okay, and dream road trip destination. So if you could ever go on a road trip, or yeah, if you had a road trip opportunity, where would you go?
I've actually just come back from a road trip around
Okay.
the South Island of New Zealand. Highly, highly recommend.
Okay.
Obviously, New Zealand's super close, not a long flight. We did
Yes.
Queenstown, we did Milford
Beautiful.
Sound, we did Mount Cook, we did amazing hikes. Like every road you turn down, there's either a view of some beautiful mountain or a lake. So would highly recommend that. Otherwise, oh, I don't know, doing some road trip around like Italy or something would be amazing.
Yeah, Lauren, some of us will be thinking a road trip down to Byron Bay, and
Yeah,
you live on
no.
the Gold Coast here. You've taken it up another level. I'm gonna have to try and trump you. I will go talk to my wife Sam about this,
Yeah.
and we'll see what we could do. Maybe I think New Zealand's was I've heard good things. Italy would be the ultimate pinnacle of road trips. Okay, great. Well, look, thank you for sharing your time, Lauren. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast because I know I certainly have, and I hope very much our team and listeners out there will too. Not only just to get to know you on a personal sense, sharing some great things about what your passion about around speech pathology and your discipline and how it all works in here with Gen Physio as a community clinician. We've learned so much, and I really just want to say thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me. It was nice to do something different for my Friday. Have a chat to you today, Jordan. Thanks.
I know I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I know we had a good time to catch up in person recently, and this will be a good opportunity for not only myself to connect with team members throughout the business, but also to learn a little bit more around our different disciplines and our backgrounds, because we're working with so many different people, and as a multi-disciplinary business, that's really key. So I haven't told you this, but I've got this new feature. We've signed up to something called Mentwell. It's a specialized gift card company for health and wellness. So you'll be getting a gift card after this once I figure out the portal. And what you can do is actually you can use this gift card $50 anything health and wellness. So it's a more or less a gift card, but it's targeted to anything you want to go take it to, soak bath house, massage,
Yeah.
doctors, or however you want to do it, all in the spirit of healthcare and what we do. So I'll get that over to you shortly, and all the best for the rest of your day. Thanks,
Amazing.
Lauren.
Thank you so much. Have a nice
Thank
Friday
you.
and weekend.
Yes, you too. Bye for now.
Thanks, Jordan. See ya.